Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Royals Fashion News. My name is Brittany, and today is Tiara Tuesday. It is one of my favorite days of the week because we get to talk about a tiara today. And today we are talking about the Mellerio Ruby Tiara from the Netherlands. We actually just saw this week with Queen Maxima, and she really rocked it. And this is actually one of my favorite tiaras. It is gorgeous. It's stunning. It has kind of, I feel like, a bit of a unique look. So we don't see this one repeated too often, really, in terms of design. So it is a very special one. In addition, because not only has this one been worn by 4 or 5 generations of Dutch queens, it's actually been worn by the crown princess as a child. She actually shared this picture of her putting her own mother's tiara on as a kid. And I just think it's so incredible. It's such a gorgeous piece. And I can't wait to share with you guys a little bit more about it today. So the Ruby Mellerio tiara was made by a French jewelry company, the Mellerio Dietz Miller. And it was a firm that has a long history and has designed actually many tiaras for different royal families, including a couple for the Dutch. And this tiara was made for Queen Emma for her 30th birthday, and it was commissioned by her husband, King Wilhelm III. And it even included, believe it or not, a very Victorian fan, which was encrusted with rubies as well. And it was actually originally supposed to be encrusted with sapphires, and they ended up going with rubies instead. And it's a part of this entire set. So there's a couple of pairs of earrings, what's called a stomacher, and a ring and a necklace, one of the more gorgeous necklaces, I think, and a bracelet as well. So this was it's called a pardeux, which is a kind of a huge set of different jewelry, and it's all can be worn together, can be worn separately. That's kind of the fun of it. And so it was created for the sum of 160,000 guillards. And the original design for the necklace was going to be considered too bulky, so they went with something smaller. And I really do feel like the necklace is one of the crown jewels of this. I love this necklace, especially paired with the tiara. Queen Maxima wore this to the wedding of Carl Philip to his wife, now Princess Sophia. And I just think it's a really stunning piece. And Maxima particularly looks stunning in it because I really, really love this look because this is the dress she wore on the later half of the day of her coronation. So I have always really liked that look, and I like this Dutch designer. He has done some amazing pieces for Maxima. On Royal Watcher blog, they deem it the 4th most substantial tiara of the Dutch collection. I think that's about true. So there's a couple that are ahead of it: the Stuart, the Sapphire, and the Woudenberg. And this one, again, is just utterly stunning in its age. It's one that was very much a favorite of Queen Emma. She wore it throughout her life because her husband passed away just a year after giving her this set of jewelry. So it was something that she wore so quite frequently until she passed away. And so her daughter, Queen Wilhelmina, who she was regent for, wore the tiara in a portrait in 1891. And in that instance, the rubies had actually been replaced with diamonds to represent the fact that they were still mourning. So Emma continued to wear this tiara throughout the rest of her life, and it was one that her daughter really didn't start to wear until after her death in 1934. And so actually, because Wilhelmina could not wear her mother's ruby tiara, she commissioned her own tiara, the Ruby Peacock Pardeux. And it's also quite beautiful as well, although again, I prefer this one. I would say between this and the Denmark's ruby tiara, this is probably my top ruby tiara. It has this very romantic feel to it, and it has a bit of that aspect of the kokoschnik and kind of the fringe style of tiara, but not quite the same. So it's still kind of different. And Wilhelmina wore this notably for the wedding of her daughter, at that time, Princess Juliana, so crown princess, although she was really the Princess of Orange. That kind of designates the heir apparent. And she also wore it in the pictures for her Golden Jubilee in 1940. 1940. And it makes sense that Emma would kept this set kind of close to her because it was such a precious gift from her husband, and her husband passed away just a year after giving it to her. And we got to think too, we think of these as gorgeous pieces and we would love to wear them, but if you are actually personally gifted one of these sets, which is pretty rare anymore, like royals still get grand jewelry, but tiaras are much rarer type of thing to receive, because we already have some. And honestly, the designs nowadays are just not nearly as good as the designs from like the late early 1900s. They're just better. They just are. So I feel like we forget that these jewelries, just like the jewelry we have an emotional attachment to it. And I feel like it was the same with Queen Emma. She was very attached to this. She really, really loved it. And so it was one of her favorites that she wore throughout her life. So, and again, Queen Juliana, who was Emma's granddaughter, so she actually ended up kind of wearing it a bit more. She wore it to her daughter's 18th birthday. So this is the future Queen Beatrix. She wore it to the state visit to Belgium in 1960 and to several other big events. And she really liked to wear all the pieces together as much as she could. Obviously, there were a couple of earrings, or they could change up the design and style of the earrings. So she couldn't do basically everything all the time. And so then it kind of started being worn by Princess Beatrix at the time, who was not queen yet. And it reflected her status as the crown princess. She wore it to the wedding ball of Prince Juan Carlos of Spain and Princess Sophia of Greece in 1962. And then the tiara wasn't seen much after she became queen, because actually Princess Beatrix, as she is known now, because she abdicated favorably for her son, the Dutch have a history of that, she actually suffers a lot from headaches, apparently. And so wearing the bigger pieces for her is really hard. We've never seen Queen Beatrix wear actually the Stuart tiara, the grandest of all the pieces in the Dutch collection, because in part she just gets a headache. So, which I feel like is sad. And so she has worn it a couple times recently. This is Princess Beatrix, or Queen Beatrix. She wore it to the wedding of Crown Princess Victoria in Sweden in 2010, and then also on the state visit to Oman in 2012. And this was right before she abdicated. And I believe she has worn it maybe one time afterwards, but after her abdication, it's become one that we've seen on Queen Maxima several times. And it's again just worn by basically the queens and whoever is the Princess of Orange. So this is one the Dutch are known for actually sharing their jewelry quite frequently, but this is one reserved. So Queen Maxima has worn this quite a few times. She wore it to the coronation in Japan of the new emperor. She's worn it on several state occasions. Most recently, obviously, during her state visit to Greece. And I feel like the most notable wearer of this tiara recently has been Catharina-Amalia, who is the Princess of Orange and future Queen of the Netherlands, who apparently really enjoys trying on her mother's jewelry. So, at the tender age of 8 years old, Catharina-Amalia put this tiara on her head in her mother's dressing room. We actually have a picture of her putting this tiara on her head, which is just incredible. Now think about yourself. When you were playing dress up with tiaras, were you actually playing dress up as an 8-year-old with a real one? A historic one that's over 100 years old and has jewelry that's been in your family for generations and has been worn by 1, 2, 3, 4 queens ahead of you, and your mother was going to be a future queen, so that's 5. And so here's her talking about it on a book that was released for her 18th birthday. She said, "Yeah, I love tiaras. Show me tiara and I'll know where it came from. I can recognize all the tiaras in Europe. I used to put them on from my mother. Then there would be one on her makeup table and I would have it directly on my head. I really like to be in my mother's jewelry anyways." I mean, who wouldn't, guys? Let's be honest. Who would not want to be in the Dutch tiara jewelry collection, which is, I would say, probably the second best in Europe after the Brits. It's kind of, I think, the Brits, the Dutch, then the Swedes, I would say, in terms of jewelry collections. The Swedes have a gorgeous collection, but I feel like the Dutch is slightly better, especially because they have the Stuart. That really puts them over the edge. But anyway, she goes on. "When I was very little, she was preparing for an important dinner, and she shouted around the house, 'Amalia, where's that ring?'" Oh my gosh, I love that. "Amalia, where's that ring?" Because one of these things too is you guys got to remember that a lot of these things actually belong to the state or a family trust. So it's not personally owned by someone. It is something that is part of a family trust. This is how a lot of these houses get out of inheritance taxes too, is that they put it in trust. That way it can be passed down to the next generation. And I'm totally in favor of that because we don't want these collections broken down because they'll go into vaults, they'll go into families, maybe they'll be broken down, and we may never see them again. So I'm very in favor of keeping these collections together as much as possible. So can you imagine a little girl, and this would totally be me too, absolutely obsessed with my mother's jewelry collection, taking things, and she's going, "Where is that? Brittany, where is that ring?" Because also part of it too is, although Maxima obviously is Queen of the Netherlands, she is actually not a blood royal in the sense that she is not in direct line of succession. Imagine going, "Oh crud, I lost that. Where did it go? Amalia, where did that ring go?" Oh my goodness, guys. I just absolutely love it. It is one of my favorites. So guys, let me know what you think of the Ruby Mellerio Tiara and collection. I just love it. I think it's gorgeous. It's probably one of my favorites. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. And what do you think of Queen Maxima's dress? So I do have a fashion Instagram account, so Royal Fashion News. And if you are interested, I am trying to maybe include a polling as part of like audience polling as part of my fashion review videos I do at the end of the week. And I have such mixed feelings about Queen Maxima's dress that she wore this tiara with, because part of me loves it and part of me doesn't. And I have very, very mixed feelings. So I would love to actually get your guys' thoughts. So if you want to head over there, I'll put a link in the description. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I love talking about tiaras, and thank you so much for joining me on this latest episode of Tiara Tuesday, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.